Okay, so welcome everyone to another session of the MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. We are in November, almost ending 2023, and this meetup started in 2019. I want to say welcome to everyone who decided to join us today in the live session, and an extra hello to everyone who joined us recently. It seems that this topic about ChatGPT and Excel is intriguing a lot of people who decided to join us just recently. I'm assuming that the topic is what captivated their attention. Welcome. This group, like I was saying, exists since 2019. We are more than 4 years old. When we started, we were meeting in person. Since the pandemic times, we moved online and we stayed online because during that time where everyone was in their homes, the group grew a lot. And all of a sudden, we had members from all over the world and presenters coming to share their knowledge with them, also from all over the world. The good thing about it is that we started to record our sessions. And everything is available in our YouTube channel. So we have a huge, it's incredible the value that we have here in all these, all the sessions that we recorded. And people keep referring, myself, I keep referring to some of the sessions. I remember that I learned something from that person that day, and I come back and look for it. The sessions, when you click in one of the videos, I'm not going to do it now because then it will start playing, but you will see you have chapters. It's easy to find the particular, our hope is that it makes it easier for you to find the content you are looking for. We have all these sessions here. Let me just quickly mute everyone because sometimes people join with their mics on and then it interferes. Okay, there we go. So you have a lot of content here, all the recordings from since the time we started to run the sessions online. Another thing that I wanted to tell you is that if you come to the website and then you come to, am I logged in? Yes, I am logged in. There's a place here. So if you go to the main page, not the page for a session, but in the main page for the meetup group, under more and under message boards, you will see all the emails that were sent over the years. And each one of these emails that you can easily associate with one of the sessions, in each one of them, you will find links to the materials, to the files, if you want to follow along with any recording that you might be watching. Oh, I'm not sharing
Celia,
my screen. Yeah.
right. I was saying it's
So
only your
sorry.
PowerPoint.
There you go. Yeah, that's what happens when you have too many monitors. Okay, so a quick, I'm nervous here today. So this is our YouTube channel. We have, like I was saying, all these sessions from the past 4 years or 3 years or so. Besides watching the content, the recording, you can come to our Meetup website. So coming to the meetup.com MS Excel Toronto, under more, you can find this option message boards. And in here, you will be able to find all the emails that I send after the session. So the way it works is after the session, a couple of days. Second. Need to mute everybody again. Okay, there we go. A couple of days after the session, we upload the video recording to our YouTube channel, and we send out an email to everyone who registered for the session saying, here's the link for the recording, here's the link where you can download the files if you are interested in looking at the files that the presenter may have shared. And I also share a lot of other types of information, anything related to Excel. So the group has always been, the purpose of this group has always been, as it says in our logo, to connect with other people who like Excel, who work with Excel, and to learn from each other and to share what we know. and it's been amazing what I've learned, and everyone has who has joined has learned over the years. So welcome to everyone. If you are joining us for the first time, I hope you like it here. I hope you come back in the future. Our session topics vary a lot. So we usually, it's very rare that we have a session that is very introductory level of Excel. But we cover all types of topics. Sometimes we go wild, like today, Excel and ChatGPT. 2 sessions ago, we talked about Python in Excel. But there's all kinds of topics. And if you feel that you have something to share, feel free to contact me. If you want to present, we can discuss and find a date for you to present. Okay? So here we go. Steve, I'm going to read your bio, the text that you sent us, not this one, as your introduction. Steve, for those of you who don't know him, Steve Kraynak, he worked for Microsoft in the Excel team for many, many years. He will tell us a bit more about that. So Steve knows all the corners, or many of the corners of Excel. If anyone knows all the corners, I don't know if anyone knows all of them, but knows many of the corners of Excel, has helped build some of the features that we enjoy today. And just recently, Steve joined some product which is a consulting company. And as a consultant, he is working now developing custom solutions using Excel and other Microsoft technologies for different customers around the world. Steve directly impacted many features in Excel, as I was saying, including new worksheet functions like ifs and text join, data from picture, Excel for Mac, user experience improvements like smooth scrolling, which might seem a very simple feature to have, but it's not. That feature that allows us to have very tall cells and not have the screen jumping. We can scroll smoothly through the text, and many other features. So Steve, thank you very much for accepting the challenge and the invitation to be here with us today. And we definitely are looking forward to learn what you have to share with us about ChatGPT and Excel. The stage is yours. Please fill in the blanks let us know about anything that I may have forgotten, and let's see what we can learn about ChatGPT today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Thank you also for the introduction. As Celia said, that's my name there, Steve Kraynak, and I'll just skip on and talk a little bit more about myself. So who am I? So I'm a lifelong tinkerer. I started up like when I was a teenager, just playing around with computers. Always loved doing that. And I always learn by doing. So for me, if there's a task to do or a puzzle to solve that it can be done in Excel, that's really the way I learn. And I find that every time something comes up, I do learn something new. It's amazing, even after many, many years of working with Excel. Every week there's something new to learn. And that's hopefully what you'll do tonight is learn a few things. Early in my career, I worked in vaccine manufacturing, and because of my tinkering with technology, I became like the computer guy within my colleague group. They always ask me, "Oh, how do you do this? How do you do that?" And I ended up doing lots of little programming on my own using VBA and Excel and Access and SQL, and just helping to automate business processes. And that's kind of what I'm continuing to do today. But I got my start a long, long time ago doing that. That led me to join a software startup that was focused on Excel. That company was called Proteance. We had an add-in to Excel, and we had a server that would track changes in Excel files. And that ended up getting acquired by Microsoft, which is how I became fortunate enough to be a product manager on the Excel team. And that I spent 12 years there as a product manager. I worked on lots of different things, some of them Celia mentioned, but it was just really awesome to be able to impact this application that millions and millions of people are using every day around the world. And then this year, just recently, I joined Some Product as the director of our US operations. And I'm happy to be here. Some Product, so you mentioned, is a consulting group where we do lots of training. We do custom development. We can do financial modeling. We have experts in a wide range of things. So we have experts at Excel who have accounting and finance backgrounds. We have experts who are really specialized in Power Query and can solve just about any problem there. And we also have experts with Power BI. And then we have training expertise as well. So please contact me if any of that is needed by you. On a personal note, I'll just mention some things about myself. I'm a dad to 4 grown kids. And a fun fact about that is 3 of them are the same age. Three of my kids are triplets. And when they were infants, I used Excel to keep track of feedings because we had people coming in to help us out. And we had to really understand, okay, did they get their diaper changed? Did they get fed? Did something come out of them and whatnot? So I did that years and years ago. And I think that they were on paper, but I used Excel to generate the form, and I still have those stored up somewhere.
That's the funniest application I think I've heard of Excel. That's so cute.
But absolutely necessary. We couldn't have done it without it.
What else could you use to help you with that?
Yeah. All right. So now let's jump into ChatGPT first. So we'll get into how ChatGPT can be used with Excel, but first it's important to understand some of the real fundamentals about ChatGPT. So it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, a mouthful, but I like GPT much better. In its simplest terms, ChatGPT is really just trained to predict the next word that makes sense. And I really like this definition I put here from Stephen Wolfram, that ChatGPT is always fundamentally trying to produce a reasonable continuation of whatever text it's got so far. So that is really important. If you understand that statement, that will help you in all the ways that you might use ChatGPT. So what's it good at? As that definition implies, it's really good at text. So it's great at understanding and analyzing textual information. It can provide a coherent sounding response. It can mimic all kinds of writing styles. So for example, I have some here, but we had a big event at our house over the summer, and I wrote a note to our neighbors letting them know there's going to be some commotion. And it was just fun to play around with. I had it put in the style of Shakespeare, and it was this really beautiful note. We ended up not using it, but it's just really cool how you can do things like that. Then what it's not good at. So it's very iffy on math. So again, it's trained on text. It really does well with text. But when it comes to math, especially complex math, it can have some problems. It's not great at innovating and having creativity. It's only able to provide information based, that comes from what it's been trained on. And, it can certainly give you ideas that you may not have otherwise thought of, but it's not strictly being creative itself. It's also not good on providing up-to-date knowledge. So we'll talk about that a little further in a minute, but I want to show here an example of what it's not good at. So 12 to the power of 1.4, that's easy to do in Excel or on a calculator. And this is the response you can see there in the bubble from ChatGPT. It gives me a very confident response, tells me how to calculate it. And actually, that's not the right answer. So just be very wary of any math. And in particular, if you wanted to count a list of things, like if you had a list of things and you said how many apples are in this list, it might tell you there are 3 apples in the list, and there were actually 5. So be careful. I do have the link there. If you want to know more about the whole way that it works, there's a great article from Stephen Wolfram that I just pulled that definition from, but it's like a 45-minute read, but it's really good and detailed all about it if you want to see that.
Yeah, and we will be sending this information, any links or materials that Steve might share. Steve already confirmed that there will be no specific files, but any content and links. We will send all that with the email after the session in a couple of days. Okay, so you can look out for that. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, that's fine. So there are a few different versions of ChatGPT. There's actually some subversions, but the ones I have listed here, ChatGPT 3.5 is like the first one that came out. It made the big splash, what everyone started using. And then ChatGPT 4 was released. This is actually the one that's used by Bing Chat. We'll show in a bit. And it's just a little bit more advanced. So there's not a lot of difference. You can see there what OpenAI tells about it, but ChatGPT 4 does give you more capability, and it's kind of hopefully should be giving you better responses, faster responses, and things like that. And again, just to repeat, no current events knowledge. So the training data used to train both of these goes up through September 2021, although it seems like ChatGPT doesn't even know that itself, because I gave it this prompt here asking for the latest news from the NFL, and it correctly tells me it doesn't have access to the real-time information, but then it says its information is up to January 2022, which is not the same. It doesn't agree with the OpenAI's documentation, so kind of interesting. All right, a few words to the wise as you're getting started. A lot, this whole technology of AI is very experimental. I mean, a lot of it is really not even understood how the models are working. They're neural networks, and they can be tested and see what's coming in and out, but they're not fully understood actually, even though they're created by humans. Don't expect the same answer twice. This is a really big one. So that's part of the reason, like, I don't have a lot of demonstrations to do, is because you never really know what you're going to get. It's by design. The responses should have variability, and that's just part of the way that the system works. For now, don't share sensitive information. OpenAI can use that information to train their AI systems. So they tell you themselves, don't share any sensitive information. If you have an enterprise license to use it, I think you get better privacy that way. But if you're just signing up as an individual, or even using the free version, which I'll show you about, just be careful with that. So, like, don't share any work information that you don't think is acceptable to get shared. Another thing that's important to know about these is that they change over time. So there's a study found that was done earlier this year, and there were a whole bunch of different tests, but one of the really interesting ones I thought was the researchers fed thousands of different numbers to ChatGPT 4, and the task was to identify whether they're prime numbers or not. And the success rate was 84% back in March, and then by June it was down to 51%. So I don't exactly know the reason for that, but these models are being tweaked, and they can be adjusted by the engineers to improve in certain areas, but then may cause them to get worse in other areas. So actually in this study, there are a lot of examples where the models did improve and gave better results, but there are some, like this one, which they clearly got much worse, and it's really important for you to know about that. There's a link here to the whole research study if you're interested to follow that up. All right, so now we have that out of the way, let's talk about how you can get started. So one thing that's super easy is just go to Bing. You can see on the screenshot there's a Bing chat button, and you can just go in there. It's even free. If you're not signed in, then you can only do 5 chats, but it's still free. And then if you're signed in with your Microsoft account, you get more. So you can do a lot there. There's, you don't have to, I'm assuming everyone has a Microsoft account. You don't have to do anything special to get in there. There's also Bing Sidebar and Edge, and I'll show a couple examples of that. The other way you can do it is to go to the openai.com. You can register for an account there, and they have a free plan, or they have what's ChatGPT Plus is $20 a month. The free plan uses the ChatGPT 3.5 model. The paid plan gives you the latest ChatGPT 4, and but you can do quite a bit with the free one. There's an API that you can use. So if you're interested in building some solution or building an app, and you can actually take prompts and send them in through your app and get the response back and show it in your app. There's a playground where you can play around with how that might work. And I also have an example of how that might work in Excel. Just so you know, there are limits on everything. So if you go in there and you can dig in deeper, there's limits on like how many requests you can make per hour, per minute, per day, things like that. Just so you're aware, and even in Bing, there are limits like I showed before. All right, so what are some of the differences? So just the two really easy ways to use this are Bing Chat and the OpenAI, and they're very similar. You can just put in your prompt. So in this case, my example is I asked it, what's the Excel keyboard shortcut to insert a new sheet? And you can see the top answer there is from Bing, and the bottom one is what I got back from ChatGPT. And the big difference here is that if you're doing it in Bing, something that I really like is that it gives you the references to where it pulled the information from. So in this case, it tells me the information, it is correct. It's actually more complete in this case because there are two shortcuts where you can insert a sheet. I think most people just use Shift F11, but you can also do Alt Shift F1. And then if you look at the bottom one, ChatGPT's response, it is correct. It's very concise, which I like. But if you want more information, it doesn't give you those links to references. All right, the Bing sidebar and Edge. So this is something I heard that they were possibly introducing this so you could actually install it as an extension to Chrome. I don't see that that's available, but I'll just switch over and show how this works. All right. So actually, first I'll just show the Bing chat. So here's a Bing chat. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but it's very simple. You just click on the chat button once you're on Bing, and here I asked it, what is the difference between the eDate and the date functions in Excel? And it gave me back this nice long response over here, and then provided me a whole list of references about it. So pretty nice, pretty helpful. And now let's look at the Bing, sorry, the sidebar and Edge. So this one, I think probably not a lot of people know about, but it's pretty cool. So you can just go to the chat and do a chat just like I showed over there. You can ask it anything here and get the response back. It gives you some nice controls, so you can tell it whether you want it more creative or more precise or balanced in the middle. There's also this tool here in the middle, which I think is pretty cool. So you can have it compose some text for you. In this case, I wanted to find out how to highlight rows in a table in Excel where a date column is greater than the last day of the month 3 months from now. So in a project I'm tracking, I want to just kind of highlight things that are coming up as due in the next 3 months. And you get to choose what kind of tone. So I said professional, and you can say I want it in the, something that would be suitable for a blog post or an email or just a paragraph or maybe a bullet list of ideas. I chose blog post here, and then generate draft. And then you can see down the bottom here, it gives me this pretty lengthy explanation, which, yeah, you could easily turn this into a blog post, and you could just copy this into some other editor and add images or, whatever you want. But it's done a really good job of writing something that is, I know it's going to be grammatically correct. That's one thing it's great at. It sounds nice, and you can always generate it again. If if you don't like it, you can hit this button down here and it will regenerate it. So that's a pretty nice tool. The other thing you can do with this sidebar is you can get insights about the current page that you're on. So here I'm showing a blog that we have on our Some Product page about XLOOKUP and XMatch. And over on the right, I get a little summary of it. And then there's some related information that comes up below that.
Steve,
yes.
There's someone asking, Beth is asking, where do you get that sidebar? Can you please just show where you clicked to bring the sidebar?
So it's just, if you have Edge, you'll have this button up here on the top right, and you just click that button. Even if you just hover, it pops out. But I think, yeah, actually, yeah, you have to click it to get it to stay there. But you don't have to install anything. You don't have to turn anything on. I guess it's possible that if you may be using this at work, that maybe it's locked down and they don't show you that. But I'm just using this, like this is the default that you get in Edge.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. So there's this concept of prompt engineering. I'm going to show a bunch of more prompts as we go through, but I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So the prompt is what you're requesting ChatGPT to do for you, and you'll get, if you start to use it, then you'll realize kind of what's a good one and what's a bad one. Just an example of something that's not good is if you don't put a lot of detail, then you're not going to get a great response back. So if you hear the weak prompt is just asking to write code to import a spreadsheet into Python, yeah, it will give you a response back, but it's probably not going to be very useful. A good prompt is where you provide detail, and I like to think of it like if you're talking to someone who maybe I'm talking to someone where English isn't their first language. I want to make it really clear, really precise, so that they can understand it. Like I wouldn't want to use local expressions or things that just aren't, proper English. And you could think that's one of the things, but also just give it good details and give it explicit instructions, and then you'll get much better responses. Something else you can do is break your request into multiple steps. So you don't have to give it a big, paragraph of instructions all at once. You can give it part of an instruction and then have a conversation, and you can refine the information as you're going through. So that's very helpful. You can also do some role play. So it really helps if you're trying to write something for an audience. This is great. Like you could say here, explain a formula as an accountant would explain it to new Excel users, or you could say explain how Excel works, and the target audience is elementary school students. And it'll put it in, it'll actually give you a response that's in that right style. So it's pretty cool. And here the last point is, again, have a conversation, and you'll see this as we go through some of the examples. Going a little deeper on this, there's a concept of zero shot, single shot, or few shot prompting. And this really just refers to whether you provide examples or not. So you can ask ChatGPT to do something without giving it an example of what to do. So for this first one here, I wanted to classify some app reviews. So you could just say, classify this app review as negative, neutral, positive, and then give it like copy an app review from somewhere. And then if ChatGPT understands kind of what that context is, like what does it mean to classify an app review, then yeah, it may give you a good response back. In this case, I was really shooting for just giving me positive, neutral, negative, something like that, just a one-word answer. So down here is an example of a single or a few shot where I'm actually providing an example. So the first app review here, I say, is an app review with a one-word classification of negative. And then I provide another app review, and then I'm asking it for the classification. So then it comes back and it just gave me this one-word response, which is what I wanted. So that's just an example where if you kind of train it in your prompt, you're going to get a better response back. There's some really great resources online, which I have listed here to teach you way more about this. I'm just touching on it for a few seconds, but some great learning guides on there. All right, now we'll get into how does this relate to Excel. Just some of the top tasks. I'm not going to read through all these, but it's good for how do I do things, how to write a formula, explaining things, and then you can ask for insights about data and do various other things, creating things for you. I do have a tip here. So if you haven't used Excel's Analyze Data button, that's not using ChatGPT. It's a feature that existed a while before ChatGPT was even available. but it's artificial intelligence that will help you, create a chart for your data, find insights about your data, things like that. So a little off topic, but I just wanted to mention that. All right, I have some sample prompts in here. I'm going to just skip over these because I'm going to talk in more detail about each of those. So I touched on this one before. Something you could do is just ask it for, in this case, kind of asking how to do something, but also in a way asking for a formula. So I want to highlight rows where the date column is greater than the last day of the month 3 months from now. And then it gave me a response back suggesting that I could use this E of month function in a conditional formatting rule. It gave me instructions on how I would actually set this up in Excel, but I just wanted to show you some of the more important parts of it here is the formula itself. I didn't really like that one. And there's a nice feature in there where you can hit a regenerate button and it will try again without giving it any new prompt. You can just say regenerate. And then in this case, it gave me a second attempt with a completely different formula. In this case, I thought, oh, let me see what it does again. And the third try gave me a solution where it added a completely different solution where it wanted me to add a new column onto my table, write a formula in that column to calculate the last day, 3 months from now, and then do conditional formatting based on that. So the conditional formatting rule ended up being much simpler, but I had to add something to my sheet, which maybe I don't want to do. And then there's these buttons. If you do regenerate, you can flip back and forth between the responses. So it's kind of nice that it stores all that information for you. One thing I found it pretty good for is finding the right function in Excel. So if you're not someone who has all the functions memorized, I mean, there are 400 or so, 450 maybe, and I think most people just know a small subset of that. It's pretty good if you ask it, how you want to do something and what function would be the best one to do that with. It comes back and it'll give you a pretty good answer. So in this case, I wanted to find out, I'm kind of baiting it here, but I wanted to get the sum product function as my response, and it gives you a little explanation of it as well, and then links. So this one was done in Bing. You can tell that by this little 3 of 5 down here. I just know that that's what it looks like in Bing, and the fact that it gave me links so I could learn more. Another place where I think it does really well is explaining a formula. So if you have a spreadsheet, maybe you inherit from a colleague, or you built it a long time ago and you just forget what it's doing, you can just copy that formula and ask ChatGPT to explain it, and it'll give you a pretty nice step through of exactly how the formula is working. And this is nice. Number one, if it's something that you're trying to understand yourself, obviously this is helpful because then you can read and it'll be explaining it. But this is also helpful if you wanted to let's say create documentation about a spreadsheet to let someone else know how it works. Maybe you're switching jobs and you want to document something that you worked on so the next person understands it. You can use this to give yourself a head start. I would caution if you're doing that, have a little bit of skepticism on the answer. So a lot of times, the answer would be pretty accurate when it comes to describing what each function does and things like that. But it is possible for it to just give you plain wrong information. So don't just take it at face value, especially if you're passing this on to someone else. Make sure you check that it's actually correct and adjust it if needed. All right, it can help you write formulas. So a simple prompt here, write an Excel formula to get unique products from a list, and then you can actually paste a table of data. So in this case, I have this table. This is a sample data that if you click the Analyze Data button in Excel, you can load some sample data and then just paste that into your chat, and it will look at the data and then it will give you a formula. So in this case, it says unique C2 to C100. It tells you how it works. And then again, this is where there's going to be a recurring theme here in my talk that you really need to check what it's telling you. So In this case, it's a pretty good formula. It's kind of correct in what I was looking for, but it's not going to work in my spreadsheet necessarily because it doesn't know the actual range. It told me C2 to C100, and maybe maybe my data is not set up where it starts at C2. So you just have to be careful with that. And in this case, the data is actually in a table in Excel, and I would rather use the table reference instead of saying C2 to C100. I want to just reference the column name, and you can see there sales table and product. But I was able to clarify, so I told ChatGPT that, hey, it's an Excel table, use column references, and then it adjusted it, came back, and it put the column reference in there. So it's basically saying, give me all the unique values just in that column. It doesn't matter how large the table is, it's just going to do that correctly. So that was pretty good. The one problem here, though, is it doesn't have any idea of what the table name is. So I'd still have to fix this because my table wasn't called table 1. So just beware. It does help you, and it told me that I should do that, which is nice.
Okay. Steve, does it ever mention the different Excel versions? For example, the unique function is not available for everyone if they don't have Microsoft 365. Does ChatGPT ever mention those details?
I haven't seen it do that. That is a great question. I don't think it really has a concept of that unless, I think, again, this is giving you an answer based on data that it read on the internet like 2 years ago. So if there are lots of articles that warn people about that, then maybe it would respond and tell you that same thing. Mm-hmm. But I haven't seen that in all the different things I've tried.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, I do have a question, if you don't mind. Munish is asking, in case an answer is wrong in ChatGPT, is there a way to train to ensure we get the correct answer as per our understanding for the next time we ask this question?
Sort of. I think I have an example. But yeah, so basically, I could go back and, it's having a conversation. It kind of remembers each step of the conversation that you're in here. So I could have gone back and said, no, the table name is product table or whatever, sales table, I think it was called. Please try again. And then ChatGPT most likely would come back with the correct formula and it would put the right name of the table in there. That's not necessarily going to learn for, the next conversation you have with it the next day. But you can certainly iterate in that particular conversation and then get better results. All right, here's another kind of cool thing you can do. So suggest insights I can get from this data, really simple prompt. And then again, you can just copy and paste. So copy data right from Excel and paste it into the chat and then let it go do its thing. And then you'll get back some information that'll give you some ideas. So in this case, the data set's pretty small and you might just look at it and kind of have an idea, but I've tried this with some more complex data sets and it does come back and it kind of would seem to be creative in that it looks at the data and tells you different things you can look at. Here it's just suggesting, some really basic things, but go ahead and try it. I mean, again, don't put sensitive data in there right now, but it's pretty cool. It can give you some ideas about how to analyze things. And then if you use that analyze data in Excel thing, maybe some of those will show up on the list and you can pick those, but maybe they won't. And you can try to set it up yourself based on the ideas. Or you can even go back to ChatGPT and clarify and say, oh, I like number 3. How would I set up a formula to calculate that? Or how would I set up a chart to show that? Things like that. All right, another thing that you can do is create sample data. So if you're trying to learn about how to do something, a lot of times you want to create some sample data and have that in Excel. That can be a kind of a tedious task, or It's just a pain to set up sample data, so you can just ask ChatGPT to do it for you. And I did that here, asking to give me some usage data for an app, and then it came back, and you can. It gave me this data. It's kind of laid out in an Excel-like way, but you can just copy it from there and paste it in Excel. You can, clean it up a little bit to get rid of the bars and delete the rows at the top that may not be necessary. And then, you can use that in Excel. So that's a pretty cool way of doing it. All right, now we'll get into some more complex things. Can ChatGPT write an Excel macro? So we tried a few different things here, and I'll just go through a couple of those. So here's one simple prompt again: write an Excel macro to create a list of all the sheet names and whether they're visible. So it actually did a pretty good job on this right on the first try. It gave us this code, which is actually, it worked pretty well, except we noticed that there's a way that you can hide a sheet in Excel called very hidden, and it wasn't accounting for that. So it gave me this code, but it would only tell me about sheets that are either visible or hidden, but not this special very hidden ones. So I went back and said, well, what about very hidden? And here's back to the question about whether it can, learn and make corrections. I don't know that I would say this one's learning, but I said, what about very hidden? And ChatGPT is really cool. It apologizes for things. So apologize for the oversight, and then explained about the very hidden. So if you haven't heard that before, there's an explanation here about what it is. And then it gave me some updated code. I didn't copy the whole thing, but just a little snippet there that shows now it can handle visible, hidden, or very hidden sheets. So it's doing pretty good. And it actually, based on the original prompt, it just naturally created a new sheet during this process and then listed all the sheets with their visibility status on that sheet, which is exactly what I wanted. Another example, could we improve trace dependence? So the prompt is to write a VBA code to trace dependence of all selected cells. So normally, if you use the trace dependence feature in Excel, it's just going to use the active cell. So in this case, it would just be cell B2, and then it would draw the arrows from cell B2 to the cells that are dependent on it. So we asked it to create a macro that would highlight the dependence of all the selected cells. And it was kind of funny, excuse me. At first, it did so, but it did so by adding formatting to the cells. So the macro is set up to actually add formatting on those cells. Not at all what we wanted, but we weren't explicit enough. We didn't say use the trace dependence arrows in there. So we said, wait, also it was inputting a message box if there are no cells selected that had any dependence, and we didn't want that. Basically just said, don't do anything. So we clarified it and just said, don't color the cells, but show the dependent arrows. And also it had given us like pretty complex code, and you can tell it to be concise, and it will try to be concise, which is nice. So on the second try, it did a little bit better job, but it also made a mistake here. So this is a perfect example of why you can't really just trust it explicitly. So it was trying to use this method called clear arrows, and that method just doesn't work properly in this case. Clear arrows is for a sheet, I believe, and it's not supported. In this case, it was clearing arrows from a cell is not what you do. So it gave this error, and we couldn't use it until we fixed it. Also, it made a mistake because we asked it for dependence, and it showed precedence instead of dependence. Okay, and then we tried a third time. So use the Excel trace dependence feature, and then loop through all the cells. So instead of just doing cell B2, give us the arrows for all the cells. And this one actually worked. It still included a message box in a certain case where we actually would rather have it just do nothing. But anyway, through a little bit of iteration, we actually got a workable macro that we could use to just very quickly add all the dependent arrows for a range of cells rather than having to select each cell one at a time and turn on those arrows. All right, another example is asking to write a macro to get a list of all the errors. So this was kind of funny where it does that, but it created a message box. So it gave us a whole list of all the errors in our workbook, but it was in a message box, so not that useful. We didn't fix that part yet, but the second prompt was, okay, we realized there's all different types of errors. Let's make it a little bit easier and group them by error type. So it adjusted the code and grouped them. You can see £NA there at the top. So this is the group of all the cells with £NA. But it still puts it in a message box, which wasn't too useful. And so we said, okay, third try, let's group these by the cells that have the same error, put them all on just one line, just make it, you know, more concise. That was good, but again, we didn't want a message box. So we could go in and tell it, no, give us code that will output this information onto a sheet or something like that instead of a message box. So again, iteration is key, and you have to go through and check carefully, is it doing the right thing? I think there was another mistake on here. So basically it was only listing one worksheet for each type of error. So instead of listing all the sheets and all the cells, it's really not giving us a complete set of information, even though it looks pretty good and the response is pretty confident that you get. And that's something you'll see frequently. ChatGPT, it gives a lot of confidence and says, you know, here's your answer. Hope it works. A lot of times it's not great. All right, so if you do want it to write some VBA for you, here's some tips. Break it down into smaller tasks, and then you can have it combine it later. If you get an error message when you're running it, you can actually go back and ask it to clarify that. So in that one, I could have asked it to clarify that error message and fix it. Or maybe it would tell me how to fix it. I could just go in there instead of getting a whole new set of code. The other thing is sometimes it will get hung up on, so you'll be having a conversation and it just may like get hung up on something and not be going in the right direction that you think it should, or you may not be getting, you know, progressing to a better result as you clarify your prompts. In that case, you could just start over, just create a new conversation, and you can do that in ChatGPT. There's just a button that says new conversation, and then try again. You can also ask it to put comments in the code, which is really useful. And then again, I mentioned you can ask it to be concise. So that's beneficial for, you know, number one, it's just less to read through. And then there's just fewer things that can go wrong. All right, so let me just show, I just want to go back, since we talked about these, I just want to show some of these examples. Now, I didn't want to try to run through all those examples because, again, it gives you different responses each time. But I just wanted to point out kind of what it looks like. So here's ChatGPT 4. This is the one where I asked it how to do the conditional formatting. I didn't mention conditional formatting, but it kind of knew that's what I was talking about and gave me the response to use conditional formatting with the formula down below, and it explains exactly how to set that up and apply it. In this one, the regenerate buttons, this little button down here at the bottom, it's not as prominent as it used to be. That's one thing I'll mention in a minute. There's some changes that happened recently and things look a little different, but here's the same prompt, and it had 2 tries at it, so I can flip between those and see which one I like best. Okay, this is another one for later. Yeah. All right. So it was pretty interesting as I was getting ready for this presentation. Just yesterday, someone mentioned that, oh, all these new changes just happened in OpenAI, and I had really been kind of finalizing the presentation a couple days ago. So then I went in today and I was trying to check out all the new things and got this message for hours and hours that ChatGPT was at capacity. So I think when they change things and everyone's interested to find out how they work, everyone is trying to sign in, and they were having some major problems today. So if you do see that, there's a link here. You can actually find out about the status, and there was a big red bar for today's date. So kind of interesting. One of the things that's really new is the idea of customized GPT. So you can go in, if you're on the paid plan, you can go in and set up these customized GPTs, and it's basically a way that you can give it some kind of general instructions that will apply to all the prompts that you give it. So an example that we tried, I'll see if I can get into here, is here's where you would see it. This is in the OpenAI kind of the API area, and there's this new thing called assistants, and this is where you can create your GPT, and basically you can provide it some information. So in this one, we provided it with a book about financial modeling, and then it uses that book to try to influence all the answers that it's going to give back. So you can now, just using this financial model GPT that we've set up, we know we're going to get answers that take that book into account. And you have to let your imagination run wild on this one. There's probably, there are limitless ways that it could be used. And the other thing that's going to be happening with this is that they're going to set up a marketplace. So other people will be able to create these custom GPTs and then make them available in the marketplace to do specialized types of conversations and special jobs. So keep an eye out for that. This, again, it's really new. It just was announced on November 6th, so just 2 days ago. I haven't had a chance to really play with them other than just looking at the one I mentioned about the financial modeling book. Okay. All right, let's talk about plugins. So I'll quickly go back here, and so there's a button up on the upper left. If you have the free version, you'll be able to just access this ChatGPT 3.5. If you pay, then you can get GPT-4, and then there will also be plugins available. So if you click on plugins, so right now it's saying I have none installed. There are a whole bunch of plugins that are available. So like Wikipedia is one. If you want to have Wikipedia be taken into account for your questions, you can turn on this plugin. It gets you up to date information from there. So I haven't used a lot of these. There's two that they used to be plugins that you turned on as of a couple days ago. This looked like this, except underneath there was also a thing for browse with Bing, and this one called analysis. Now those are just browsing and analysis are just on by default with GPT-4, and I'll show you a little bit about those. But anyway, the plugin, there's a store you can go to and find out more about the plugins. And so here I'll talk a little bit about the browsing one. So again, just as of a couple days ago, this is just on by default. So if you ask it something like here, I said, please tell me 5 recent features added to Excel. I think I have an example of this one up in the browser. Maybe not. Thought I did, sorry. Anyway, as you can see in my presentation here, it actually would take a break and say, oh, you're asking about something new. I need to browse the internet for this. It goes off and it does a bunch of crunching. And I'm assuming this is kind of behaving the way it would if you're just having your chat in Bing. Now it's coming from both sides. In Bing, of course, you get those links to more information and where the information was taken from. That wasn't the case in ChatGPT until a couple days ago. Now you'll get that same thing back here. So you can get some current information. In here, it gave me the list of recent features added to Excel. and it's giving me a hyperlink. You can see it's the What's New article from the Excel team. So, that gives me a pretty good idea that I can trust the information that I'm getting back here. So that's pretty cool. Again, it's just on by default now if you're using the ChatGPT 4, so you don't have to worry about it. There's another one, it's called Analysis, and this one was also optional, but now it's just turned on by default. And it's pretty cool because this one, it's not necessarily that it's better at math, but it actually can interact and do Python on the back end. And so here's an example where we asked it to run a variable regression on some data about home prices. And you can see in the first response, based on what we're asking it, it says it needs a data set. So we had the data set in Excel. You can provide in CSV or Excel. And then you'll see a little paperclip icon in the chat. You click that, and then you can pick any file from your computer. You submit that, and then it's going to go away and churn for a little while. And then it's going to tell you the steps that it takes to actually do this analysis. In this case, it came back with a big long response. I just have some of the highlight snippets here, but it actually has an explanation of how it did the whole step, or how it did all the steps. And then when it gets to the end, you can actually expand and see the Python code that it used and the result that it came out with. And in this case, at the end, it gave me a summary, told me all the relevant statistics about it that it got from that analysis, again using Python. And then we said, okay, well, are there any suggestions that you have to improve the R² value? And it came back and gave us some more information about that. So that's a pretty cool way with this analysis summary that you can actually submit some data and give it instruction about how you want it to analyze it. And then it does a pretty interesting job. I didn't verify that everything was correct in here, but it seems like it probably is much better than if you weren't using the analysis feature, because it's not just basing it on text, it's actually using the Python to do all the calculation. Okay. Another thing you can do with that, it's called advanced data analysis here. That's what it was called 2 days ago. It's just called analysis now, but I forgot to update my slide. But you can actually ask it for data and in the form of an Excel file. So here I asked it to create an Excel file with some sample Net Promoter Score response data, which is something I looked at a lot at Microsoft. And this way, like if you want to learn about just how to deal with such data, it can be anything. It will actually take your instruction and then give you a link to download the data. So you can see here I downloaded this sample data, and that's what it looks like there. So it's a pretty cool way. I showed before how you could get sample data, but it came back as just a block of text. Now with this analysis thing just always active, you can get it downloaded as a spreadsheet, or you could ask it for a CSV, and you'll actually be able to download that file. All right, I think we're getting kind of close to the end, but there's some really cool things. So if you haven't heard of this add-in that you can get called the Excel Labs, add-in for Excel, you can get it in there. Just go to your Insert tab and choose Get Add-ins, search for Excel Labs, and add this one called Excel Labs, a Microsoft Garage project. And then you can do some pretty cool things making use of ChatGPT. So this does require that you create what's called an API key from your OpenAI account. I have instructions here. I'm not going to go through all those, but basically you're going to create a key, and then this add-in to Excel will be able to use that to send requests to and from ChatGPT from right within Excel. I have some examples here, but I'm going to show this. So, oops. Let's go into Excel and take a look at that. All right. So I've already added it here. So I have the Excel Labs button you'll see in the toolbar. It does some more things, more than just this interaction with ChatGPT. There's a couple different things that are unrelated to that, but for this purpose, I wanted to show here you can configure the API key. So in your account, you would get a key and copy and paste it into here. And there's some instructions on how this works, but it's actually really pretty simple. So once you've put that key in there, that enables you to use this function in Excel called labs.generative AI. And it's really just a way that you can submit a request right from here and get the result back in the cell from a formula. So here you can see the way I've set this up is the column header is really my prompt. So I'm asking ChatGPT to provide a definition of the following Excel functions in 3 sentences or less. And then I give it the reference to the cell to the left here. So I just have a list of popular functions, and it goes away and it comes back and gives me a definition of that. And you can change here, obviously. So I don't want H lookup, I want X lookup. And it goes away and comes back really quick. So kind of cool way you can get some information in here. Here's an example where I just give it random things, but there's a column here with a prompt. You can type in whatever you want, and then a column with the response over here. So here's where I think where I got that list of functions. I asked it for 10 helpful Excel functions and put it into kind of a table format, so I could use text to columns and separate this out if I wanted to. Just give it a, give me definitions of things. Another pretty powerful way you can use this. I went out and got some app reviews from, I guess it was the Apple App Store about Excel, and I just wanted to see if it can classify the app reviews as positive, negative, neutral, things like that. So I have, again, my prompt up here in A2, and you can see my formula I gave that a name called my prompt. So it's just going to submit my prompt, which is the question, and then I submit the review with each one. So the reviews are in this table in the first column. And I was pretty clear in here to give it in 1 or 2 words. When I first did this, it gave me a big long paragraph explaining the reasoning behind why it would be positive, negative, neutral, or whatever. So I got that down to 1 word. Then I thought, okay, well, I should be able to put a score on each of these. So I just use a little switch here based on whether, the response back, I give it a score. So I could do something a little bit more fancy there. And then something that this kind of goes back to some things we did at Microsoft. We had tons and tons of feedback coming in from everyone using Excel, and a lot of it wasn't very actionable. So we really could use this tool here to analyze each piece of feedback and tell us, okay, what this person said, is there anything we can actually do about it? So if they're not complaining about a specific feature, maybe they just say, I don't like Excel. That was something we heard a lot, believe it or not. We can use a tool like this to classify it. And if it says it's not actionable, we can just not even read those and go to the ones that are actionable. So you could use your imagination. There's many, many different things that you could do with this, but it's pretty cool. Again, it's the Excel Labs add-in. And if you'd sign up for the free version of ChatGPT, I think you do get access to use the API for 30 days for free. So you could try this out. After 30 days, then it'll stop working until you pay for it. Just so you're aware of that. All right. So a real recent development is the release of M365 Copilot. Unfortunately for me, and maybe some of you, it's only available to enterprises with certain licenses and a certain number of licenses. So I actually haven't had a chance to see this firsthand and play with it, but I did get some this little video here, and I'll play a 1-minute video from Microsoft about it.
Copilot in Excel helps you make sense of all your data. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need, but you want to drill in. You ask Copilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. Copilot creates a new sheet, giving you a sandbox to play in and helping you better understand what's happening. You ask Copilot to visualize what contributed to the decline in sales growth this period. Copilot adds a little color to make the problem jump off the page. Now you want to dig deeper and ask a follow-up question with a what-if scenario. Copilot not only answers your question, it creates a simple model and even asks if you want to learn more about what it did with a step-by-step breakdown. Finally, you can ask it to create a graph of your projected model. Copilot in Excel turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions.
There's another video. I'm not going to play that one, but basically they have Copilot to help you do Python in Excel. I am a little skeptical of some of the things they showed in there because from what I can read, I'm going to talk about it here. I'm not sure everything they showed is actually available yet. There's an FAQ. I put the URL here that gives some great information about this, so you can, if you don't have it, you'll be able to either understand why or understand how it works. Here's a real key thing. It requires a certain level of subscription and at least 300 seats. So if you're, at a small business, you probably can't get it. Or I think it's also not available yet for education licenses. But right now in Excel, it's only supported in English. Data must be in a table, not just a range. So it's pretty specific, like the scenario that you can use this on. The file has to be XLSX or XLSM and stored in OneDrive or SharePoint with autosave enabled. And it's not capable of doing the conversation that we showed in all the examples where I'm in either Bing or ChatGPT that you can go back and clarify. It's not capable of doing that yet. Okay. And here's some just highlights I found in the FAQ about it. So can I trust the insights and formulas? It's careful about this, and this is something Microsoft is really big on responsible AI, and Microsoft knows that it's not going to always do everything perfectly and not always giving you the right answer. So it's clear that you should read over what it gives you and then use your judgment and make sure that you kind of agree with what it did for you. It's critical for you to review and verify everything. And then about the specific features. So the features that I could find out about that are described in Microsoft documentation, and there's actually help articles about these, is that it can help you sort and filter table data, add conditional formatting to highlight the data. It can generate charts and pivot tables, which I believe is probably making use of the analyze data feature that's already there. And it can create new columns in your table with a formula based on a prompt that you give it, or it can create Python code. I'm pretty sure that's all it can do now, but this is going to be changing, I'm sure, very rapidly, this brings me really to my last slide. The pace of change is really fast on this. Like I said, just 2 days ago, a whole bunch of things changed in OpenAI's interface, and I had to really scramble and try to understand that so I could make this presentation. So what I told you here, it probably could be irrelevant 3 months from now. Just keep an eye on it, and I'm assuming it will get better and better. And especially the Copilot, I'm sure Copilot will just have more and more capability as time goes on. I know it's clearly a big bet, as Microsoft would say, that they're spending a lot of money and resources to make that great. So I'm sure we'll see some advancements there. All right, that is the end of the prepared presentation. So any questions that we have right now?
We have Cheryl Foster asking, can you use this to prepare a PowerPoint presentation?
That's a great question. I actually don't have firsthand knowledge of whether you can, but I can say when I was at Microsoft, which was just earlier this year, there was the ability on an internal build of the system to, let's say, take notes from a meeting, or you could take a transcript from a meeting and paste it into a field in PowerPoint, like a Copilot, and say, make me slides that summarize this information, and it would do that for you. So I didn't look and research PowerPoint Copilot, but I think those are the kinds of things that you will be able to do. Yes.
And we have John Peltier asking, what about Copilot? How soon can regular users get access to it? Do you know?
That is the million-dollar question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I showed you, it took me a while. I saw some rumors out on the internet and from talking to other people that about the limitation where you had to buy at least 300 licenses of it. And it took me a long time, but I actually found the Microsoft document that mentions that. So I don't think they really want to make it super public, but it is available if you know where to dig. And I put a link. I put a link to where I found that in that one slide.
Someone has posted a link to the PowerPoint, Copilot and PowerPoint in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's it for the questions I've noticed that you haven't already answered. The rest is people saying, nice presentation. Oh, can ChatGPT help in the creation of dashboards? That Dwayne just asked that one.
Yeah, it absolutely can. I should have mentioned, like, there's a lot more to it. I mean, kind of the possibilities are endless at this point. So I couldn't include all kinds of examples here, but we've asked it to help us write some Power Pivot DAX measures and explain how to, create things on the dashboard. It's really kind of limitless. Just use your imagination, and it is a great way. Of course, we're focused on Excel here, but I think is a great way to learn about many, many different things. And I certainly, there's no reason why you can't do it to learn about dashboards. Anything else?
For anyone, I've just popped in a few links for Steve's website, blog, and LinkedIn connectors.
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks again, Celia, for inviting me.
Thank you.
To everyone watching. Check us out at someproduct.com.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, check us out at someproduct.com. We have lots of great information there on our blog, which we publish some new topic every day, and we have themes. So every week we post something about Power Query, or we have a series going on there if you want to learn about one specific thing. And again, we have a team of experts. So if you have any different needs, small or large, in Excel or Power BI, or if you need training, please reach out. I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you. I was going to ask, do you find yourself sometimes spending more time battling with ChatGPT or Copilot or Bing to give you the right answer that you could probably get it yourself just by doing it yourself in one go, maybe slower at the beginning, but just get it done? Do you find that happens, or?
Yeah, I honestly, my personal preference has been like if I do use Bing quite a bit, and it always tries to start a chat with you, and if you click on the wrong part of a result in your search, it'll open it up as a chat. I tend to not use those as much, but what I have found is that a lot of times it will kind of give you ChatGPT's summary of what you asked for, and it has links in there, and a lot of times I'll just directly go and start looking at what the links are. I'll read what the website is, and if some of them are familiar to me and some are not, I'll sometimes just click on those. So I'm kind of in the middle, even though I did a lot of playing around with it for this presentation. I'm not a heavy user of it at this point, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I was also wondering about EVA, for example, or other type of coding. I find that I don't really find it, because I tried it once or twice and haven't really used, but I find annoying having to review the reply and the response instead of just doing it myself. At least I will know what's in there and it will be easier to debug than having to understand what it wrote and how it structured it, and then understand, that's why the bug is coming up. But I know there's people here. There's Eric Eric is saying that ChatGPT is great for creating micro automations. Yeah, I guess for micro automations, that's what Eric calls to macros and other functions, things that are very simple, very concise. I guess for that, it can be a great help. Do you find yourself asking ChatGPT with please and thank you? ChatGPT is always so kind that I find myself, can you please do this?
Yeah, I do the same thing, yeah.
That's great. Let me share my screen, because in the beginning of the session, I kind of got a little bit mixed up with some issues, technical issues that we had, and I forgot to mention our next session for those of you who are still here. Our next session in December will be with MVP Tom Hinkle. He will talk about conditional formatting, which is a very powerful feature in Excel, and there's a lot to learn about it. So whatever level of Excel you consider yourself to be, I invite you to come along and to learn with Tom. There's a bunch of other sessions that happen in multiple meetup groups about Excel around the world. And Faraz always builds up the calendar for the month. So if you find him on LinkedIn, you will be able to follow his posts about the calendar for each one of the months. And there's a couple of events. In fact, I don't want to share. This one is outdated a little bit. There's a couple of Excel events coming up that I wanted to share. There's the Active Cell organized by the Financial Modeling World Cup. The company organizing the Financial Modeling World Cup, that several runs of the championship have been happening. The final round will happen in December 9 in Las Vegas, and it will be part of an event called the Active Cell, where there will be conferences, networking opportunities. I'm guessing a lot of partying as well, because it's in Las Vegas, and there's master classes as well. So it will be a big event, and also it seems that it's going to be a very fun one. If you are considering joining the session, there will be a lot of the known faces of the Excel world there. There's the code there for a discount of 10%. Feel free to take advantage of that. And then we have also, in February, the Global Excel Summit, it's fourth edition, if I'm not mistaken. You can also get 10% off with coupon Celia 10. The other one was Celia. This one is Celia 10. And this one is in February. They are still selling the tickets at early bird price. So feel free to check them. I think it ends November 20-something, 27, I think, but I'm not totally sure. So if you are considering to join the event, take advantage of the best price while it's available. There will be 2 days in person this year, and then 1 day with online presentations. I will be presenting on the online day. And for those of you who are new here, I release a bunch of different content about Excel. There's the monthly newsletter. It goes out, as it says, once a month with all types of information about what has been added to Excel recently, what are the new features and improvements, and I add a lot of other information, Excel books. So if you are interested in keeping up with what's happening in Excel, all this information will be will be available in the files to download, and some information will be in the email as well. And there's my training program about how to automate recurring procedures in Excel. You can check that out as well if you'd like. And this is the information to connect with Steve. And that's it. Let me know if there are any questions, and if Steve is still available for a couple more minutes. We definitely have some room still available. Let us know if you have any other questions.
Yeah, and for those of you still on, if you think of something later, feel free to shoot me a note on LinkedIn or email me with my contact info there, and be happy to get back to you.
It was very interesting to see all the different perspectives and examples that you touched on, Steve. I think some people might be expecting to see more action in Excel exactly, but I totally understand that it would be very difficult because, like you explained, it does not come with the right answer in the first try. And so we would be spending a lot of time back and forth with trying to get it to give us something meaningful, and we would be wasting a lot of time and would have covered a lot less than we actually covered. So thank you for that. And now people can go back can refer to the recording and really find the details on your slides and explore them in more depth. So thank you for that. It was nicely done, and I think it will be very useful.
Great.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you. Wonderful session.
Bye.
Thank you. And don't forget to join us next month. And the page is up for registration. If anyone wants to still say anything or ask anything, feel free to. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can chat a little bit for those of you who want to stay for a little while.
Yeah, I see John's comment. Very little noise, relatively little noise about Copilot in Excel.